Hello again, Internet. So, this time, Bees has given me a list of topics, which should prove very exciting for everyone. Most of all me, because now I have to talk, and that could go very badly. It's been historically known to happen. There have been studies. Sometimes me talking causes small rifts to appear in the universe, and it happens. Anyway, first on the list, werefoxes. I'm actually not entirely sure how this started, or how it became a thing, or how it became my thing, except that if you look at Peter Eggers, your entire brain just goes werefox. Obviously, a werefox. It's just a simple fact of nature and science and things. I mean, I couldn't help it. He's a werefox. Something has to be done with this information. I'm not entirely sure what, but so then I just started. I don't know. I mean, there is folkloric precedence for the existence of werefoxes in lore. In fact, the ballad Reynardine, which I've interpreted previously as a vampire ballad, just because there aren't really very many in the English language ballad tradition. There are very few about vampires because vampires are more of a Slavic thing that kind of crept into more Western lore more in the modern times. Anyway, moving on. The ballad Reynardine, there are a few interpretations of it that are folklore, that are fox. There are a few interpretations of it that are vampire interpretations, although those are mostly newer and mostly people going, man, there are no vampire ballads. Like me. But the original interpretation of the ballad, which you can probably ascertain from the name Reynardine of the not main character. Actually, the structure of this ballad is really weird in places because in some versions it starts out with this dude who's like walking around in the woods as one does, I guess, taking his normal afternoon walk, and he sees this attractive young woman talking with this guy who he thinks is really creepy. And he's like, and he just kind of watches them. He's like, wow, this is totally bad news. And then I guess he just leaves because nothing ever comes of his observations. He's like, man, this guy's really bad news. I'll just leave them to it. Like, dude, you are completely useless. What is wrong with you? Like, shouldn't you go up and be like, hey, are you going to kidnap this woman? Ma'am, do you need any help? You look kind of like you're being hypnotized. Your eyes are all swirly. I mean, he's not as useless as the boyfriend in Molly Bond who mistakenly shoots his fiancée because he thinks she's a swan. Because apparently he shouldn't have a license to be shooting guns without his glasses on. Anyway, in most traditional interpretations of this ballad, Reynardine is an attractive young man who lurks about in the woods, and largely operates by seducing young ladies and taking them off to his castle. And that's basically his entire career. Anyway, that's werefoxes for you. I'm sure there are much nicer werefoxes out there who do not kidnap you and possibly murder you after. I mean, you never really find out what happens after he gets her to his castle, but she does seem pretty mesmerized, and also the guy watching them is a completely useless fish head, so alright, moving on. Now that we're finished with the topic of werefoxes, the next thing Bees suggests I talk about is the similarities between alien abduction and fairy abduction lore, which is actually something I've discussed in public. So you probably heard the story about how I went to a bar. I was just gonna get a 6-pack of Sam Adams and take it home and drink it alone in my bedroom because, contrary to popular belief, that is awesome. And somehow, instead, I ended up spending the next 2 hours talking to this very nice middle-aged trucker about classic rock and UFOs, and also describing to him the contents of Medieval Bestiaries, because I was reading Medieval Bestiaries that week, and they're really hilarious. But we'll talk about Medieval Bestiaries some other time. Just Google it. Google them. Read some samples and marvel at the strange things that they thought bees came from, and bears being licked into shape, and the ant lion. Anyway, I was describing the Medieval Bestiaries and completely useless demons in medieval folklore. You know, usual bar small talk. And at some point this turned into me yelling theories about aliens and fairies somewhat loudly, although I maintain that's because there was music playing in the bar, so you kind of had to shout, and I actually have trouble modulating my voice, so I can be very loud at times, especially when I get excited about things and can't think to make my voice be quiet. So there's this woman at the bar, you know, middle-aged woman, who just kept looking over at us like, who are these people? Who let them in here? Should I be concerned? Why? What? She just kept looking over at us, and I'm like, ma'am, I don't even know why anyone wants me in either. I can't help you with that. Anyway, I find it very interesting that the distinct similarities between alien and fairy abduction lore. One, the fact that their main goal seems to be kidnapping, like, all the time. Like, they do this a lot. For reasons that us mortals usually cannot entirely ascertain. But there are a lot of very similar symptoms, such as the lost time is a big one in both circumstances. People wake up and they're wandering somewhere weird, and it's frequently in the woods, and like, hey, what was I doing? Why do I have all these vague memories of lying on a table, like, being observed? They're also obsessed with babies. Like, why is everyone so obsessed? Well, I mean, it makes sense. Babies are very useful, I suppose. You can control them, but they're always stealing babies and then replacing them with other babies, or not replacing them at all, or having trouble reproducing. This is a big thing. Like, fairies are constantly needing to kidnap midwives because they can't give birth properly. Like, they don't know how, or they kidnap some human, and now the human is giving birth, and the fairies don't know how to help her give birth. So they have to kidnap midwives, and they put salve on their eyes so that they can actually see into the fairy kingdom, because it's invisible to mortals or something. They have, like, it's possible that they operate in other dimensions, fairy dimensions, yes, that exist in a sort of, you know, like, there's a dimension right on top of this one, and it interacts with this one, but you can't see it because it's another dimension and it's different, and I like dimensions. I like them very much. Anyway, so it was possible. Anyway, see, this is why you shouldn't ask me questions like this, because then I get all excited and it gets really weird. This is also why I'm not allowed to go out in public much, except with trusted people, because otherwise we had an upside down Christmas tree at work. We were selling Christmas trees because it was Christmas, and people kept going, why is that Christmas tree upside down? And then I would have to forcibly restrain myself from babbling at them for the next 10 minutes about Germanic Christmas traditions and Queen Victoria, and it was very bad. I'm so glad that it's not Christmas anymore. Anyway, this video is getting long again, so I should wrap up my discussion here. So, my theory is that possibly aliens and fairies are the same, or not quite. Like, it's possible that, I mean, there are so many different kinds of fairies as well. You have the humanoid ones, which are the majority of the fae, but then you also have, you know, brownies, and well, some brownies are more humanoid. But I mean, you have all these weird little creatures, and nobody really understands them, and they seem to have a completely different psychology than us, like completely different grasps of right and wrong, and enjoyment and pleasure, and such. So it's possible that they're aliens, but then why would aliens still be coming here if they already were fairies and have been here, you know, kind of living in their separate dimension, overlapping with our dimension. Or possibly fairies are very slightly, the fae, the primary fae at least, are very slightly alien with enough human in them to give them a sort of understanding and fascination with humans, and then they retain some of the same cultural instincts and abilities and inabilities. I mean, there's a lot of mind control in both camps. Love mind control. Never trust anything who loves mind control. I think that's actually a given in general, probably. Anyway, this is getting really long, so I'm going to shut up now because this is just weird. And you're all going, this is completely normal for you. And, well, you know what? I don't like you, so you can just hush. I just spilled coffee on my nose. I have to go.